on how to edit your pages in the bulletin. So before we get started, if you are on the call, if you can mute yourselves, because this is being recorded and we want to make sure that we get clear sound on this, that would be great. So to start off with, this is your kind of your opening slide here, but nextbulletin.wustl.edu is your site for your bulletin. This is your editing environment. So when you go into the site, if you are following along, we want you to go through Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. So those are going to be the best browsers to use to access your editing environment. And then when you go in, it will likely prompt you to maybe enter your username and password. So that is something that you can go ahead and can have on. All right. So the first things that I want to talk about are just why we're doing this. And I know by default, we call this product the catalog and not the bulletin. I'll try to use the word bulletin. But for the intro here, we have this product because it's allowing your students to search for programs and course information much more easily. It's accessible on all browsers. So even though we want you to use Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, when the bulletin is published, it is something that you can see on all browsers, even if you're not accessing the site from one of those 3 browsers that I just mentioned. And the other thing is that it will allow you to view your bulletin from any type of device, whether you're on a desktop or a laptop or your phone. The screen will orient itself, the site will orient itself based on the type of device you're on. It is ADA compliant, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the editing component. And of course, it is easy to search for information and find what you're looking for. So for the next hour, we're going to go over a few things. The first thing is your deadline for editing, for finishing your edits, is Tuesday, February 28th. And I guess before I go any further, Jen, do you want to elaborate on this at all, on this particular date?
I guess the main point is that by the 28th, I'm hoping to have all the text changes in. For those of you who have course information on your pages, that will be handled through a import process that will start at the beginning of March and run through the end of May. So right now we're just looking for changes to your requirements, anything else you want to say about your department, your faculty lists, and that kind of thing, but courses are handled separately. So that's the main thing, I think.
Okay, thanks. So in this training, we'll talk about how to access your pages and then basic editing. So this is going to take up the bulk of the session today. We'll talk about formatting, styling, lists, and links. And then I'll point you to some resources that we have on our website. And then if anybody has any questions or comments, we'll take those as well. So if you are receiving an authorized message, Jen, I think, can look into that. And yeah, if you're using Safari, yeah, it should work with Safari, but if you are using an unauthorized message, yeah, we'll look into that and see why you're not able to access. All right, thank you. Okay, so first I want to go over some basic terminology. The first item is page owner. And page owner is basically the person who is responsible for editing a page. You can use the term page editor or page initiator, whatever phrase you use or whatever term you use is fine. The next item is start workflow. So start workflow is going to be a green button that you're going to see on the lower right-hand side of your page. Consider it the submit button or the turn it in button, and it's always going to be on the lower right. That is also going to be the last thing that you click when you're done editing. Now, when you have done all your edits and have clicked that start workflow button, then a workflow begins right away. And so then really your work is done at that point. And it will go through a workflow, and the people in your workflow will review your work, and they will then also approve it on their end, hopefully. So we'll talk about what it looks like from the approver standpoint a little bit later, but generally your approvers will have an interface that looks like this. It includes these three icons, but we'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. So basically the objectives for this is to be really familiar with the interface of your catalog space, your bulletin space, and making sure that you are comfortable making the edits. And the good news is a lot of the editing that you do is very much similar to what you would do in Microsoft Word. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take the slide deck off my screen here. And what I have here is a page in your bulletin for computer science and engineering. And I am looking at this page as if I was one of you. So I am in here logged in as Barb, one of your coworkers. And so when you're going into a page that's yours, the first thing that you'll notice is there is this edit page icon in the top right-hand corner, left-hand corner. So when I click on this edit page icon, I'm going to see this toolbar all the way across the top. The other thing I'll see is I'm not logged in as Barb, actually. I noticed that. So let me just kind of reorient myself just a moment here. I apologize. I must have like reshifted something. So give me just a second to kind of change course here. Oh, okay. So oddly enough, it's saying I can't log in as Barb. I don't know why. But we'll go ahead and keep going. I'm going to go ahead and try one more time here, and I'll go ahead and just show it as you can see it. So apologies for that. Okay. So when you go into your page editing toolbar, the other thing that you'll notice here is it says who you're logged in as. Now, technically I should be logged in as Barb, but I'm not. For some reason, it's not letting me log in as her, but nevertheless, it would have your user ID down here on the lower left-hand corner. Now, the other thing to note is that, and this is going to be kind of small on my screen, but it says page owner. And so the page owner is Barb here. So Barb really is the only person that would have authority to edit this page. Now, so let's just pretend I'm Barb for the time being. Now, right under that, there is this workflow hyperlink. So when I click on this workflow hyperlink, I can see right next to it, it says this role here. But if I click on it, it will give me what that standard workflow is. So all these people are going to review the work or take a look at the work that I do before I turn it in. All right. Now, if you are in the catalog, you can technically go into any page. You can look at any page, but if you don't have access to edit a page, it will say you won't have access. It will not show this toolbar. All right, so because I'm hypothetically in here as Barb, I can go ahead and see the toolbar, and I can see in theory that I would be logged in as Barb. All right, so now let's talk about editing. So the first thing that I want to touch on is when you are editing with a page that has tabs on it, like this one, you want to go ahead and click on the pencil icon that's next to that tab. And so the other thing you'll notice that it will have the same name as the tab. So I created this training tab here, and you'll see there's a pencil icon that says edit training. And when I open that up, it has a page body editor. This is where you will do all your editing. So the first thing that I want to point to is when you are editing, a lot of times you want to start with, or a lot of times you might want to start with a heading. And let's make this training tab a heading. To do that, right above on the top here in this drop down where it says normal, there is a paragraph format drop down. So right under that, it says normal and then heading 2. When I click on heading 2, we can see how the training word looks bigger and bolder. So that is how you would create your heading. Now, one thing you'll note is that heading 1 is not shown as an option. And the reason for that is that heading 1 is actually taken up by the title of the page, which is computer science and engineering. So after you have your heading, the next thing that you can do is start working on your text. So you can go ahead and click return. And if you need to do any edits, you can start typing in your text like normal. Now let's say that there's a scenario where you need to make a subheading. And to do that subheading, again, you would put in the title of your subheading and then go under the paragraph format dropdown. And this time you would click heading 3. So when I move my cursor here, you can see over training, it's heading 2. In the subheading, it's heading 3. Now, the main thing that's important here is you want to make sure that your formatting is uniform. You don't want to start off with a heading 5 and then go to a heading 3. You want to make sure that the heading sizes are together, or kind of in an umbrella, if you will. And so you want to make sure the biggest heading is the smallest number. And then if you do need a subheading, then go from there. All right, so then you start editing more content, typing in other information, etc. The other thing that you have available to you in your page body editor is bold, italicize, and underline. So those 3 icons at the top are exactly what you would use in Microsoft Word, and they work the same way here in your bulletin. So if I click the B icon, that's going to bold my content. If I click the I, it's going to italicize it. And if I click the underline, the U, it's going to underline that. And also, if I want to undo any of this or do any of this, I can also use keyboard shortcuts. So if you're accustomed to using keyboard shortcuts like Command or Control, B or I or U, you can do those keyboard shortcuts the same way that you would if you were on Microsoft Word. And also, you can also undo those by using those same commands. Okay. And then finally, combining those commands is also something that's available to you. So if I do a command italicize and underline, that will all work in combination as well. All right, so those are the key editing components with your page body editor. All right, now the next thing I want to talk about are lists. So when you are making a list, if you, let's say you have a list of things that you want to display here. We want you to actually use the list tool right here instead of typing it out. So if you have content that lends itself to a list or a bulleted list, a numbered list or a bulleted list, we definitely want you to use these two tools, one of these two tools. And the main reason that we want you to use these list tools is because they are programmatically discernible for individuals who use any kind of assistive learning technology. So a screen reader, for example, will look at this and interpret this as 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and so forth. All right, so again, if you do have any lists, make sure to use one of these two tools. And then once you're done with that tool, you'll notice that if I try to click return or enter, it automatically wants to continue the list. You'll want to click return or enter again to basically bring it back to the left-hand margin, and then you can continue typing. All right. So once I've done some work on my page body editor, let's say I want to take a break and save my work. To do that, all you need to do is click OK right here. OK is the same thing as save. And you also have this save icon right here, this little disk icon in the upper left-hand corner here. You can also use that, but usually I use OK. And then once I've done that, I see the work that I've done on my page. All right. So the next thing I want to cover is linking, how to link on a page. And I don't know how many of you will need to do this, but one of the things to note is if you do have links on your page, you do want to at least check them to make sure that they're working. All right, so for the links, I'm going to go ahead and click on the pencil icon again to open up the page body editor. And we'll go ahead and just make a new heading called links. And I'll go ahead and highlight this. And under the normal, I'll just create a new heading, make that links word a heading. So there are 3 types of links that you'll want to know about. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in some verbiage here before we go ahead and continue with this. All right, so the first one is your external link. The external link is what most of us are familiar with, and that is basically a link that's going to take users to a different website. And in this case, let's say that I want to create a link to your home page. To do that, I've selected Washington University, and I'll click on the little chain link icon right here. So when I click on that, I'm going to get this pop-up box. And really the only thing you need to worry about is this first field where it says link to a URL. And when I click on the URL field, I want to make sure to type in your URL. Now, the important thing here is the HTTP, the HTTPS. So that part of the URL, that is what's telling the software that I want to go outside the catalog to another website. And so if you are linking outside And yes, you can copy and paste. That is totally fine. Thanks for that question, Erica. So you can certainly copy and paste the URL. And so let me actually just make sure that that is going to work, but let me do that on my other window here, just to make sure that we're consistent. Still.edu. Okay, so I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, so no, you can't copy and paste it actually. I don't know. Let's see what happens. That HTTP is still there. So let's do that. So it seems to work. I don't normally copy and paste URLs, so that's why I'm a little like, I want to make sure it works. So the other thing I want you to do, if it's an outside site, is click on open in a new window. And that's going to ensure that your users, when they click on that URL, they're going to have a new tab on the browser as opposed to replacing the page that they're on. So we'll go with this, the copy and pasted version, open in a new window and click OK. So that's our external link. And we'll check this in a little bit. From there, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Does that? Okay. All right. I want to do another version of that just to make sure. So the next thing I want to do is point to another page on your bulletin. And so for this one, I'm going to go to undergraduate. And I'm going to just use this little breadcrumb trail over here and point my cursor to undergraduate, and that's where I land. So for this one, I don't need to select the whole URL because really what we're looking at is the editing version, the editing environment. And so what I want to do is select everything after the .com. Now for you, the URL is slightly different. It's everything after the .edu for all of you. So I'm selecting everything after the, the pretend .edu here, including that /. So when I click, not click, but I'm going to select this. I'm going to copy it and then go back to my page body editor in computer science and engineering, and then click on the pencil icon. And then over here, I'm going to select undergraduate, click the chain link here. And then go ahead and put in the relative URL. Okay, all right. Jen has posted some things explaining marketing and communication style is to not open things in a new window so that the back button functionality works. / isn't confusing. Okay. I think this may also have something to do with accessibility. Links show up in yellow highlighting, so we can notice these during editing. All right, good to know. Okay, so do what Jen says. So we'll not do this, but for the purposes of this training, I do want to do this right now, just so we can check to make sure that the links are actually pointing to the right place. But normally, do whatever your admin team, do whatever Jen tells you to do is there. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. So that's our internal link. And then the next link is an email link. So for the email link, this is slightly different, but for this one, what you do is type in the words mail to, and then the registrar at whatever the email address is. I made this up. I don't know if this is a real email address, but mail to : and whatever the email address is. So with this one, I wouldn't really never do an open in a new window, but we'll go ahead and click OK here. And this is an email link. So when we click OK, and we take a look at this. So this is our external link. This is pointing technically out. And if I click on this, it opens up to your home page. If I click on this internal link, it then opens up to the undergraduate bulletins page. And then the email link, if I hover over it, and this might be hard to see on my screen for you, but there's a little screen tip that says mail to registrar@westall.edu. So when I click on this, it's going to open up this box that prompts me to choose my email account provider. And then once you do that, it will put that email address in the to field, and then you can write in an email from there. All right, so let me go back in here for just a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and just shift these. So if I need to edit anything, I'll just take out that open in new window. And click OK here. All right, so the external links are always going to point up, so that's good to know. You always have this little icon that says it's pointing outside the bulletin. So Jen's also posted a message here that if you want to add a link to a PDF, reach out to her. There's an uploading process that she needs to do, so it is archived. So that's good to know. So those are how you do links. Now, in terms of other pieces that you want to be aware of, if you click on the little pencil icon here, one thing that you'll note is in the page body editor, there is a little blue dot with a question mark that says help. So if I click on this, it's going to point me to the page body editor page of our help site. And this is really just showing you what that page body editor looks like and what the editing toolbar looks like. From there, there's a couple other things over in the navigation here that I want you to be aware of. The first one is right here in the middle where it says format text. So when I click format text, this will have a list of some of those common styling pieces that we talked about, and a few others that we didn't talk about. So bold, underline, italicize. There's also some alignment things, but the numbered list and the bulleted list are also there. It also talks about formatting and has some GIF videos about how to make your headings. And then also a GIF about how to create bulleted lists, as well as written instructions. So if you forget or can't remember how to do something, this is a good resource to point to on the help site. And then the other thing that we talked about is the about links right here. And this page will have some GIF videos as well as written directions about how to create your links. All right. And again, the way to get in here is that blue dot with a question mark. That's going to take you to that page body editor page, and then you can go to format text or about links. All right. So, okay, so the other pieces that I have listed on my sheet here are really to do with other key components like a predefined table. Not a predefined table, yeah. I'm sorry, an inline course reference, which is another type of link. So on our chat here, can somebody give me the name of a course? Give me a course code. It doesn't matter which one. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So L33, let me know if I'm typing in this incorrectly. So let's just see what it looks like. And feel free to call me out, Jen, if I'm not doing this right. So you can put in a course like this, a sentence that says, is a great course. And that's fine. It's just really text that you're typing in. But if you want a hyperlink to the course, what you want to do is use this little icon right here that looks like a stack or a fist, really, a fist with an arrow pointing to the right. It says insert edit database field. And so when you do that, it's going to go ahead and pull that information, and it recognizes that as a course, and it will convert it into a course link. Now, on the editing environment, it looks like this. You have the name of the course and the subject code, and it's surrounded by a blue box. So anything that's in a blue box is pulling from your student information system. And again, this is an editing environment. So really anybody who looks at the catalog from a public perspective is not going to see the blue box. When I click on the OK, what it looks like is this. And Psych 301 on the hyperlink, when I click on it, it will display a course bubble that has the course information for this particular course here. All right, so that is called an inline course reference. If I go back into the page body editor, let's say, for example, I want to go ahead and type in something similar. So we'll just copy and paste this. So let's say that with this course, I just, maybe I didn't mean to write 301. That was an accident. So instead of deleting this and retyping, what I can do is double click in the blue box. And double clicking in the blue box is going to take me to the this inline course reference area. Let me double click here. Yeah, it's going to do the same thing. Okay, so if I double click, it's going to take me to this inline course here, and I can see the School of Engineering. That's what I'm already in, but it will also allow me to select a different course. Now, because I'm on an engineering page, this is where it's already landing. So I may need to figure out where I need to go to find my psychology course. So once I've found my psychology courses and the college I'm in, then I can go ahead and decide on a different course. So let's say I meant 300 instead of 301. So I'll select 300 again, or 300 this time, and click OK, and it will then change that 301 to 300. All right, so, and that's weird. I don't know why this is what it was actually supposed to do, take me straight to psychology instead of having me look for psychology. So that was kind of odd that it did that. Now, the other thing to note is, let's say, for example, I go ahead and do something like this. If I type it out, okay, if I type it out like this, and then click on that little icon, first of all, I typed out a course that doesn't exist on purpose. And if you do that, it will say course not found, and it will have a red box inside the blue box. Now, again, the colored boxes are things that don't show for the public, but they do on the editing side. So if I click OK here and I look at it, this is what it looks like. So it will say not found. Now the red box again is not for public view, but we can see it. But the not found word is going to be there if you don't fix it. Now, if you are working on a page that has a lot of courses on it, and it's a lot of information on a course, a really quick and easy way to look for those red boxes is to click on Accuracy Report in the toolbar. So remember, when you go into your page, when you click on the edit page, you'll see this toolbar. And in the middle here, this green checkbox, which is Accuracy Report. This little icon here really kind of scans the page for any red boxes. And it can say, here it's saying Psych 302 not found. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, let's say I'm on the overview section here. And if I still do the accuracy report, it's going to find that there's a red box somewhere on this page. And it's picking up that Psych 302. Now, it doesn't tell you where Psych 302 is exactly, but it's telling you that somewhere on this page, in one of these tabs, there is that red box. So if you have a page with multiple tabs, I would say still do this, still do the accuracy check to make sure that you don't have any red boxes. The other thing is, when you are on a page with tabs, you own all the tabs. So you want to make sure that you've edited all the tabs before you click Start Workflow at the lower right-hand corner here. So this is your Turn It In button. All right. Okay, so let's go into this area again. And so let's say the other way to do this is, instead of typing out the name of the course, you can also go straight into this Insert Edit Database field here. So when I click on this, again, kind of similar to what I did before here, you select your college, you select your subject code, and then find your course, and then click OK, and it will then put in that course right here, just like that. Okay. All right. And then the other thing is, for the actual inline courses, if you go into the help bubble here, or the help, that blue button here, inline course is actually right above the page body editor. So when I click on the page body editor link right above there, inline course, this particular page on the help site will have GIF videos and written instructions on there for you to review. All right. Okay, so the other thing that I want to touch on is tables. So you have on a lot of your program tables or program pages, your tables that look like this. You have a course code, the name of the course, and the credit hours. And all of these courses have hyperlinks, and when you click on them, it will display that course description. So the course list like this is not difficult to do. So when I go back into the training tab here, if we go over under the tables, let's make a new heading called tables. And if I do a course list, the way to do a course list is to go into this little grid icon right here, where it says insert edit formatted table. And so for this one, when you click on it, course list will be the first item that you see here. And when I click on that, this will then place the college and then a drop down for whatever your letter and number code is for your subject. Then you select that. And then this box is for your table. So this area right here on the left is exactly what you see for the inline course reference. But the only thing that we have added is this empty box here. This is what you put in your table. If you need to create a new table, really what you're doing is clicking this arrow right here and adding courses to this box. So if I single click, single click, single click, it's adding courses to my table. I can also double click, double click, double click. And once I've done that and click OK, then I have my course list. Now, if you already have a course list that needs to be updated, then what you can do is just double click in the blue box to get to that back end space of that course list. A couple things that you can do here. You can add your total hours here. So some hours, and then click OK. That will add the total number of credit hours into the table. And then another thing I want to just make you aware of is, let's say that you want to have a footnote in the table. And so let's say with this Engineering 316 course, I want to put a footnote. So for the footnote, I'm just going to put a number 1 here and then click OK. And we can see that footnote, but we need to know what that footnote is about. So to make a footnote, you need to go back into that grid icon right here. And instead of course list, you'll want to go about not quite halfway down to footnotes. Click OK. And it's going to open up into kind of a mini page body editor. So the first thing that you'll want to do is click on the symbol field and put the number 1 here. And that will automatically put a number 1 in the top box. And then in the footnote content box that we see below here, which is literally just like a miniature page body editor, and there's a lot of space to type in your footnote here, you would type in your content. And then click OK. And the footnote is going to look like this on the editing environment. When you click OK in the page body editor, the footnote just looks like a regular footnote in a textbook. All right. So that is what a course list looks like. Jen, do you want me to go over the plan of study table as well?
Yeah, you could go over that briefly. I think another thing that's helpful in these tables is maybe going over like the and or.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Yes,
Thank you.
Certainly. Okay. So let's go back into the table here. And one of the things you may have noticed here are all these fields here. And so if you have additional information for a particular line item, you can go ahead and add those in. Now, let's say, for example, I'm just going to kind of go down this list here. Engineering 120, let's say you want to have a comment related to this course, and let's say fall only. Okay, so this selection of Engineering 120 and the comment correlate with one another. Now, if I take my cursor and move it to 150, that comment goes away. But if I go back and click on 120, we see that comment again. Sequence. Sequence, let's say 150 has a sequence course. Sequence is basically you're saying to students that they need to take Engineering 150 in conjunction with another course. And so I'm just going to type in another course here. And just just to kind of make it up here, I'm just going to go ahead and put in that psychology course that we had earlier as a reference. Now there is no, you know, adding that course in this way with the arrow. You have to actually type it in. If you have multiple courses, you can type those in as well, comma separated. Comma separated. Let's just try this and see how it looks. Engineering 217. If you have a cross-reference, you can go ahead and add that in as well. I'm just going to go ahead and do another psych course, 300. All right, now, I don't want to cross-reference this, sorry. So 160, let's just cross-reference this. I know none of this makes sense, and that's okay. All right, then you have your or. So they can take 310 or another course, and we'll just put 300 here. And then let's click OK here just to see what we have. So the comment that I made for engineering 220, or engineering 120 rather, is in parentheses. And then the and course, the courses that were sequence courses, are going to show up as indented courses. The other thing that you see here, and this is something I think it looks like is a kind of custom function here, but ideally the credit hours should be accurate. And they're accurate because I don't see a red box around them. So that's actually good. You don't have to actually manually change anything here. Cross-listed courses are going to show up with a slash, and then any or courses are going to show up like this. All right, and then the total units are going to be automatically added in. One other thing is, let's say that I want to go and add in my psychology course in here. Instead of having to go into these drop downs and finding that course, I can go ahead and type it in as a quick add and add that course onto my list by clicking add course. One other thing I can do is I can do what's called an add comment entry. And an add comment entry is, I'm sorry, let's go back here. Is where you are just typing in kind of like a heading. And I don't know if this is something that you would want to do, but let's say I make this requirements word a heading, and I can move it up or move it down. And you can do that with any of these courses, by the way, too. If anything is out of order, you can use the move up or move down. And let's say that I add in a few other things here. With the requirements, let's say that you have a certain number of requirements that they need to take, you can add that number in that line item. Now, the problem with that is, let's say you only want them to pick like maybe a few. So let's just modify this just slightly. Let's say 6, just to keep things simple. So this doesn't make sense, obviously, because if we're asking them to have, let's say, the requirements, but they pick 2, let's do that. Let's just modify this even more. Pick 2. The numbers do not make sense, and it's inflated. So what you want to do with this is you want to indent these items so then it's separated from the items on the top. The indentation, what that will do is it will suppress the credit hours. And that way the total credit hours will be a little bit more accurate. So we have 22 credit hours as opposed to like, I think what it was 28 or something like that. So indenting suppresses the credit hours. And so this is what that would look like. All right, the last thing I want to cover is another table, and that is your plan of study table. And so some of you may have these on your pages. The plan of study is very much similar to the course list. And what is it? The course plan, I believe, is what you have it as. So the plan of study here is really exactly the same. The only difference is you have a year and a term. And so when you are building one or maybe editing one, you want to make sure you're making changes in the correct year and the term. If you are building one from scratch, you will need to select the year and the term first, and then add your courses. So let's say first year fall is done. I don't need to click OK to save it. It will save itself. And then I add in my courses for spring. And then I do second year fall. And then second year spring. And then when I click OK, this is what it will look like. So it's really a way to differentiate which courses I'm taking which semester. All right. I think that is everything that I have. Jen, is there anything else that you can think of or anything you want me to elaborate on?
No, I don't think so. I think that certainly covers the majority of what page owners will need to know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Thank you, Erica. Yeah, so the fall is showing here. And yep, so you have the fall column and the spring column. All right. Well, very good. So again, one of the things I want to point to is that help bubble right here. And we talked a little bit about tables. We do have a separate tables section under the CAT, CourseLeaf CAT section. So if you click under tables, there is a lot of information about tables, but if you are looking about how to do your course list, there's a course list section that kind of runs through how to do some of the things that we talked about. And then also there's a section about plan of, we call them plan of study grids, you call them course plans. So the plan of study grid section will talk about how to do those course plans. All right, well, thank you again, everybody. I hope this was helpful. And if you have nothing else, then we can go ahead and end this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shiva, and thanks to everyone for attending. As you get started with your pages, please reach out to me, phone, email, or Teams with any other questions. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.